Welcome to Module 1, all about goal setting. What we're going to do is we are going to work on setting your overall goals so we can then reverse engineer them in order to build the exact right platform for your life and the markets you need to reach. This is a foundational step. It can also put you ahead of all of the competition because if you think about it, a lot of people just kind of go with the flow, waiting for life to give them opportunities. So by starting with your big goal first, you are creating your own destiny. Now, when thinking about goals, really think about making them audacious and not short term, like this year or next year, but really a life goal or a 10-year goal or even a 3 to 5 year goal. Something like saving $25,000 or getting a promotion at work, fantastic goals. These are short-term goals. What's that big goal? Right? The one that gives you a purpose, the one that gets you out of bed in the morning, excited to go work on. My life goal is to impact 100 million patients worldwide. I know that sounds like a massive goal and a little, if not a lot, terrifying, until I break it down for you and show you how I've built a career around achieving that particular goal. In my case, it comes down to working with companies that have the potential themselves to impact that many people. So I work on or I angel invest in early medical device, pharmaceutical companies, and health IT that are working on especially highly prevalent and destructive medical conditions and diseases like cancer, autoimmune disease, sleep apnea, infectious disease, diabetes, and neuro. I don't need to impact 100 million patients alone. Nobody does anything alone. I rely on being part of many teams that can help improve the lives of patients. So let's start with your goals. It can be anything or multiple reasons. Maybe you want to impact a region or change an entire industry, start a company, change careers, even be a C-level executive in your particular industry. Think about it, audacious. I want to introduce a new concept to you here. Now, if you've met me in person or you've seen me on stage, you have probably heard me refer to my life as Robin Inc. So I want to now introduce you to your life as You Inc. It's all about thinking of your life as one entity, not compartmentalized, but departmentalized. All your personal and professional departments a part of You Inc. Now, I hear people talk about thought leadership as its own entity or compartmentalize it. They treat it like that separate being that takes away from their resources. Because they view it as a waste of time and money in that way, many of these people fail to actually become thought leaders. The best way to succeed is to think about everything you do in this journey as an investment in you. I also see some speakers and people who want to be thought leaders keep private social media accounts and then public social media accounts. First of all, this can be exhausting. Do you really want to worry about who can see what every single time you post? Plus, your audience is going to feel offended at your lack of transparency because you're asking them to trust you and then you are shutting them out. So instead, if you want to share things like photos of your children or post opinions that might be taken out of context with a wider audience, just use group messaging or private groups of some kind for family because you're really not trying to reach 3,000 people with some of the things you want to post. Social media isn't for you or about you. It's always about your audience. Now, there are always potential clients, customers, employers, partners, or investors that might have access to what you think is your private feed. Keep it simple. Make everything in your life, including your social media feeds, help you reach your goal. And then you don't have to worry about who can see what. Now, later on in time management, which is module 10, I'll talk about how to bring tasks from your office and everyday life together so you can be a lot more efficient. Because when everything you do, how you spend your time, what you do on social media, how you go about getting chores accomplished, falls under those same goals, you can propel forward towards your goals much more quickly. So the same way getting a degree is an investment in you, everything you're doing now is also an investment in you. When you spend money to develop yourself as a thought leader, you're spending money to develop yourself as a person. And that in turn drives your revenue channels and your overall goals, all coordinating to create the life that is perfectly designed by you and for you. So as you move into specific goals for you and this new way of being, there's a formula that can be very helpful. It's the why, how, what formula, inspired by Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Start with why. If you haven't seen Simon's talk or read any of his books, go ahead and Google him at some point. It's really impactful. I love his start with why. So this formula will help you consider your big goal and your mission, as well as smaller incremental goals that move you forward. With this formula, Simon creates this framework of thinking that helps you work from the inside out. You have to start with your why, and only then can you move on to your how and your what. So your why in this case is your purpose, your motivation, and what you believe. Your how has to do with your process. What are the specific actions you need to take to achieve your why? And then what is all about the result. What do you actually do in the world because of your why? Now, the reason you have to start with why is because your purpose should drive everything. A lot of companies and people know what they do, but few have outlined why they do what they do. You know what I mean? This is an especially important formula when you are talking about pursuing different revenue streams. The things that you're going to be doing on a daily basis, because you Inc. has only so much time, energy, and capital, so you really need to choose wisely. So if we were to apply this formula, the why, how, what, to revenue streams, we would ask things like, why are you pursuing this particular revenue stream? How is that revenue stream built? And what does it look like in action in the real world? In fact, this concept is so important. I'm going to dive into building multiple revenue streams in the next module. Now, hopefully you are thinking about your whys, and if you haven't downloaded the workbook by now, download it and jot things down as they come to you while I'm talking. You don't have to wait for the action items at the end of the module, because you will be writing down your why you do what you do. So my whys for even turning myself into a professional speaker in the first place and creating that project plan to achieve that goal is because this whole system that you are now going through is built off that project plan that I created that long ago. And whenever I undertake anything this important or anything to do with an outsourcing of money, right? I like to have three major reasons. You don't have to have that many, but I like to have three major reasons. First of all, my day job is business development, which overlaps, of course, with sales. By becoming a professional speaker, my sales funnel and my biz dev funnel comes to me. I have very deep experience working behind the scenes of conferences and events. So I understood that by becoming one of the speakers, it would open up a ton of doors for me because I saw it happening for all the rest of them. Let me tell you, it has worked beyond my wildest expectations. My second why is so that I can have multiple revenue streams in my life. I've never worked at only one company ever. It's just who I am. And I understand the future of work and that no one company anymore is safe ever again, at least not in the foreseeable future. So I wanted to make sure that I had multiple ways of bringing money into my life. And my third why was really to counteract the bias and the abuse I've faced here in Silicon Valley. Now, just to tell you, I have worked with over 25 different companies at this point, and I've only faced this extreme type of a bias or abuse or sabotage for maybe 5 of them. But I've had many different types of things, from sabotage to men putting their hands on me in front of other men. For instance, I walked into an event at the founder's house of a company that I was pretty high up at, and I met the outside attorney for the first time that day at the party. Within seconds, he kept picking me up and putting his hands all over me. This man outweighed me by at least 100 pounds and was about 12 to 14 inches taller than I am. And by the third time he tried to touch me, he had to lunge out of his chair to grab me, and then he picked me up and squeezed me against his body. I was in shock. I have never had something like that happen to me. And this man, who I didn't even know, was putting his hands all over my body in front of a team of like 10 males. It was crazy. It was only after the third time, when I looked like, I think probably that I was going into shock, that the CEO asked the attorney to stop touching me, because he said that he didn't think Robin liked that. I've been deleted off websites, press releases, emails, had men steal credit for my work or to steal my work. And fighting against this was very difficult. I'm guessing some of you have also had this experience, and I'm sure you have, because this happens in front of me quite frequently to other people as well. I would be in a meeting and I would say an idea or voice an opinion, and no one would acknowledge it. And then a couple of minutes later, one of the guys at the table would repeat my idea almost word for word, as if it were their own, and the whole table would respond. This happens so often, it's hilarious if it weren't so incredibly bad. So I realized early on fighting this stuff was futile. People, especially other men, unfortunately, in these particular situations, they look the other way, even in cases of gross abuse. So I decided I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to change people's opinions of these types of things. So I'm going to turn myself into a professional speaker, and that way my ideas aren't going to be stolen anymore, and I would have a big layer of protection against bias and bullies. And that worked even better than I ever could have imagined. Business Insider, after my last book was published a few years ago, ran an article where they quoted saying that I am now in a tank and the men are on horseback. By doing something like publishing a book, it dramatically changes the power dynamic. Now, bullying and abuse, of course, are not gender issues. It happens to a lot of people. I have actually seen it happen to a lot of people, and few are safe. So if you've been in a position where you've been pushed down or bullied in any way, or faced bias in any way, becoming a thought leader is a fantastic solution and huge armor. All right. So let's think about your goal or goals and your whys tied to them. So with your goals, don't be afraid to go big. If it's not a goal big enough to make you gasp when you think about it, think bigger. Now, once you have your goal written down, consider how it's tied to your why. Why do you want to build up a startup? Why do you want to support people with a specific type of problem? Or why do you want to be a C-suite of your industry? Once you can see that big picture and the end results you want, then you can much more easily map out the how that goes along with your why. In each of the following modules, I'm going to dive more deeply into the how of this particular process into becoming a thought leader or a speaker. But taking action makes no sense without a reason. What matters most is you connect with your goal. Now, I also encourage you to think about your goals and tie them to a clear mission. If you want to share your ideas with the world, or if you want to travel, speaking and engaging with an audience, you need to be clear about your overall mission. How is your mission connected to your big, audacious goal? Reverse engineering this is going to put you in a much better place than your competition. Now, let's start with your skill set and then build from there. So to build towards your goal, you really need a clear understanding of what your skills are. So we're going to write down at the end of the module, or you can start jotting them down now, your natural skills, right? Are you good at engineering, at sales, at marketing, at operations, at processes? What did you study in school? And then not just traditional school. What did you self-teach? We've all taught ourselves a lot of things. Also, what skills do you use in your job now that you love to use? We are designing your life. You don't have to use those skills that you don't actually enjoy using. Now, the importance of honing the skills you have and developing your new skills cannot be understated. To be a thought leader, you need to show up with excellence and credibility at all times and provide real value to others. So you already have what you need to begin. You simply have to take that first step. When you do the action items, you want to make sure to list at least 3 to 5 skills. You probably have a lot more, so you can continue to list down 15 or 20, but at least 3 to 5. And then you want to think about how you monetize those particular skills. For example, you could monetize your skill set if you were, say, a physician by, of course, seeing patients in a clinic. You could do concierge medicine, which pays even more. Consulting. You could be employed by a corporation because they are all employing healthcare professionals on their healthcare sides. You could do keynote speaking. You could do research. You could teach. You could hold a government position. You could be an expert witness. There are so many different ways to monetize having an MD, right? If you're a naturally organized person, you can monetize that skill in so many ways. You can work as an employee or a consultant in operations. You can work in management. You can work as chief operating officer or director of operations. You can do event planning. You can do project management. You really would work well in any kind of environment where multiple things are happening at once, and you need to be able to keep the details straight. So here are your action items if you haven't written them down yet. What is your overarching goal or goals for you, Inc.? And within that, your 3 to 5 year goals. And if you only want to come up with 3 to 5 year goals right now, that's okay too. We can work towards those. Once you have that down, consider how it's tied to your why, the reason you do what you do. Overcoming or facing a hardship is one of the best whys. Those are the types of things that resonate with people. Now, I mentioned my whys for creating a project plan to turn myself into a professional speaker. My why for setting my life goal of impacting 100 million patients is very different. That's because of my history as a chronic disease patient myself. Now, after my experience in the world of healthcare as a patient for a couple decades, and I talk about this in my first book, The Patient as CEO, I gave myself that audacious life goal, which was to impact 100 million patients. Because I want to prevent others from feeling the way I did. And I want to find a way to pay back all the doctors, hospitals, medical device companies, pharmaceutical companies, payers. All of these types of people work together, not only to save my life, but to help me live a productive life despite having a chronic disease. So with this life goal in place, I decided to, of course, angel invest, advise, or work on those kinds of companies that would help me achieve that goal. So what's that goal and what's your why? And then after you get that, let's dive into your skill set. If you didn't write that down already, your professional and your educational background. What do people think you excel at? What do you think you excel at? What other high-level skills you could potentially have in your life? And tie your goal to your skill set. How can you use these particular skills to achieve the goals that you have written down? And you can indicate next to the skills how they can be monetized in relation to your main goals. You might be a top excellent chef, but if you want to work in the world of engineering, maybe that isn't a skill that you even write down because you're not going to monetize it in respect to your overall goals right now. Now, also potentially think about skills that you want to develop because you are at a stage right now, you are developing yourself into a thought leader. So what kind of skills do you want to have? What will help you stay ahead of the technology curve? And then what else might you need to be a thought leader? That one I will be going over, especially in Module 8 when I talk about how to get ready to be on stage. Now, some of these may actually be hard to answer for you right now. And if they are, you can go back and answer some of them later on because this workbook is supposed to be cumulative. And so in other modules, if you suddenly think about that you want to write something down or answer a question differently, you can definitely go back. So that's it for now. I will see you in the next module.